Asked the big question. And I said, am I going to have more children? She kind of paused. And she said, you're pregnant. Right now, I'm pregnant.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test.
Psych! Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm not pregnant. But she did say that we had two options. She said that if Paul and I repaired our marriage, which our marriage is not, don't freak out, people, our marriage is not in bad shape. It's just every marriage needs work. And so she said, as long as we get more playful and more intimate, not in a sexual way, but in a playful, friendly way, then yes, we will have a daughter. She said that she will be blonde with curly hair, which makes a lot of sense because Landon was blonde with curly hair until I chopped all them curls off. And then she says if we don't, then we won't have any more kids. So she says it's really basically all up to us. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. And today I thought I would do a story time about the time that I called a psychic. Anyways, so a few weeks ago, maybe like a month ago, I called a psychic here in Sacramento. I looked her up on, or I just looked up psychics in Sacramento, and she was the one that had the best reviews on Yelp and everywhere else, and her website was like legit. And so I called her, and for 30 minutes over the phone, we had, it was a 30-minute session over the phone, and it was $65. She was very, very sweet. The very first thing that she said to me, first of all, she only knew my first name, and the very first thing that she says to me is, have you been to the vet lately? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, I just got a dog. And she's like, oh, okay. I was just, that's what I saw. And I was just wondering. And I was like, okay. And I didn't want to, I'm not a non-believer. I'm a believer. I just know that there are people out there who, try to take advantage of other people. So I was like, are you for real? Because I know that I totally believe in psychics. I just wasn't for sure if she was for real. So I wasn't trying to be give out too much information. So I was like, yeah, I just got a dog. And she was like, oh, okay. And then she was like, do you have a sister that lives in San Diego? And I was like, my best friend just moved from San Diego, and we've known each other for 20 years, and we always refer to each other as our sister, as sister. And she goes, and she has a daughter, you have a niece. And I was like, oh my god. I was like, she does have a daughter. And she goes, she's very, very young. And I was like, uh-huh. And she's like, I'm seeing 3. And I was like, she legit had turned 3 days before I had that appointment. And I was like, oh my god. And so she was like, this little girl has got so much charisma. She is going to be a little... She basically said that my niece would be famous, basically. And that my best friend, who I call my sister, is going to write a book about how the journey of her daughter becoming famous. And I was like, what? So you can imagine that when that call was up, I immediately called my friend. I was like, guess what? So yeah. So she basically told me how my niece was going to be famous. She did tell me that if any of the plans that my friend made changed, if her future changed in any way from what she's seeing right now, that could alter whether or not that actually happened. So if it doesn't happen, it's not because it wasn't true. It just meant that she took a different path. So she asked me a couple things. She asked about a guy named Bob, and I was like, I don't know anybody named Bob. She said just to leave that, just, as future reference. She said that he worked in construction. I was like, I don't know anybody named Bob. I don't know anybody who works in construction, so I don't know. She said, what else did she say? Oh my god, I'm like trying to rack my brain. I had notes, but I don't. Oh, just kidding. I found my notes. Okay, so. Oh, do I only have one page in my notes? I only have one page. Okay. She said something with turtles was important. She said that I shouldn't compare myself to other people, and she named the person I compare myself to, but I'm not going to name them just in case they're watching, and that's, like, embarrassing. But, I was like, oh yeah, I totally compare myself, and she just told me not to do that anymore. She says that I need to love myself, which is a huge problem I have. You guys have watched my anxiety video. You guys will know that I have a huge problem with anxiety and PTSD, and that all stems from things that have happened in my past because I didn't treasure myself. Of course, she said things like I'm smart and I'm loved and I'm beautiful, and I was like, I know. She called out my bad relationships, and she called out my bad relationships by name. She actually called the motherfucker's name out, and I was like, yeah. Like, I was like blown away that she like said his name and was like, you know, there's nothing you could do about it, and it's in the past, and you know, he was bad from the beginning. It wasn't anything that you could have done, and it wasn't anything that you saw. He was a manipulator, and he kept you from seeing his true self. So I was like, I mean, those are things that obviously you know in the back of your head, but you just never, as a person, you just never fully accept it sometimes. I know I didn't, and so that was kind of helpful. Then she asked if I had any questions, and one of the main reasons that I had called her was to talk to her about my grandmother who passed away 4 years ago and my marriage. And so she said my grandmother, and so she said other things, like she came off and asked me, she said, who's Kathy? And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, that's my husband's mom, and she's passed away. And she was like, she is screaming at me to say thank you. And that meant so much to me because I never got to meet my mother-in-law. And I was always like, oh, I wonder if she's up there like thinking like, fucking bitch. And so for her to say that she screamed thank you, I fully believe that, and it just made me feel so good. So then when I asked about my grandmother, I called my grandmother Grams. And so when I asked her, I said, I wanted to know if my grandmother's coming through. I didn't say which grandmother. Both my grandparents are passed away. Actually, all my grandparents passed away. And so I did not say which one. And she goes, she's like, this is so weird. She was like, I'm seeing the word grandmother, but I'm seeing it on a scale. And she goes, but the scale is not like a weight scale. It's a grams scale, like per grams. And I was like, uh-huh. And at first I didn't get it. I was like, why would it be a scale? And she was like, she paused and she was very quiet and she was like, And she's like, did you by chance call your grandmother Grams? Did I call my grandmother Grams? Keep in mind, this is over the phone, okay? This is not in person. My tattoo is not visible. My Facebook is not public. You have to add me as a friend. I was like, what? Oh my gosh. When she said that, I got chills. And immediately I was like, I'm sold. This bitch is for real. And so I was like, uh-huh. I literally started crying. And I was like, mm-hmm. And she was like, oh, okay. So that's her telling me that's which grandmother's coming through. And I was like, and that's exactly the grandmother I wanted to talk about. And I was like, oh my God. But here's the thing. I didn't get any other information. I wanted more information. I didn't get any of it. So I may call her again sometime. I may also call somebody else, because when I was telling my husband about this, he was like, I would call other people, other psychics, and just see if you kind of get like the same results, just to, have some variety maybe. So I thought that was really cool. When I asked about my marriage, she was on point with the type of personality that Paul is. I mean, I was literally giggling because I was like, oh my God, it's like, you're exactly, him. That's what it felt like. And so she just explained my husband to me and my personality, and she just said, you guys are on completely different, sides of the field, and as far as your personality goes, you guys need to be more playful, and I totally agreed with that. And then I asked the big question, and I said, am I going to have more children? So she said it's really basically all up to us and what path we choose to take. So I'm really hoping that we work on that, and that someday I will have a little girl with blonde curly hair, which is kind of scary because I really did not want to have girls at all. I was like not on that girl train, but I just really want to have more kids, and I definitely want to have kids with Paul. So if we have a girl, I would be more than happy. As long as she's happy, healthy, I will be happy. So that's my experience with a psychic. I will go ahead and list her website down below if you guys want to check her out. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! Mwah!